today's a special day. Today, we have a really personal, good friend of mine, one of my biggest supporters for all our events, one of our community leaders, Rolando Vazquez.
Yep.
Who is an immigration attorney.
Yeah.
One of the best and an amazing soccer player here.
Yeah, so I'm kind of happy with the list of guests we've had lately, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Because for a while, we had everyone from the hospitality industry, because we know Kiko knows Maduro. But now we're getting people from different sectors, which is interesting because the people in the community get to hear from industry leaders. So for those people who do not know you, say your name and explain what is it that you exactly do.
Camera right there, Ron.
My name is Rolando Vazquez. I'm an immigration attorney. I have my office here in Coral Gables. I live in Coral Gables. Everything I do is in Coral Gables, Florida. So, and I arrived in Miami in 2006. I fell in love with Miami, and I said, you know what, this is the place where I'm going to call home. And that was it.
Yeah.
So it became my home. Originally, I'm from Illinois, Peoria, Illinois. So if anyone knows REO Speedwagon, I don't know if you guys know.
Yes, yeah, we do. I'm that old, yeah.
So my mother, is a big fan of REO Speedwagon. And they're from Peoria, Illinois. So they started playing music out of a garage from, one of the members in East Peoria. Really? So whenever I say Peoria, most people don't know where Peoria, Illinois is. Right. I just said, if you know REO Speedwagon, they're from
That's
Peoria.
the Illini, right? Illinois Illini, the college out there is the Illini?
I don't know who that. Yeah, I don't know.
Illinois Illini?
No.
He's a soccer player.
I'm a soccer player. Yeah, I don't play.
Yeah.
It's all good. Brother, I wanted to ask you a question regarding your career as an attorney more than anything else. So I'm watching The Lincoln Lawyer now. Have you seen it or no?
Not yet.
That's amazing.
What is that?
It's a Lincoln Lawyer. It's a good series on Netflix.
Okay.
And this guy's just masterful in the way he weaves into things and just represents his clients very well. And I'm getting this urge I wish I would have been an attorney, man. That shit would have been
What is the real attorney? What is the truth?
So why did you want to be is this something that you had since you were little, or explain to me why you decided I want to be an attorney?
You know what? There's a lot of motivation behind it. Originally, I thought I would play professional soccer my whole life. I thought I would be a soccer player, and then I'd go into coaching. I just thought my whole life would be in soccer. Really? But there was always in the undertone, there was always the talk of being a lawyer. My father always said it. My mother always said it. And there was also something within me that said, I want to be able to defend people. I grew up in a small rural town in Georgia. So I was born in Peoria, Illinois, but I grew up in the South, in country.
And your parents are from originally?
Mexico. My parents are from Mexico. Monterrey, Mexico, my mother, and San Luis Potosí, my father was born.
What town in Georgia?
Dalton, Georgia. So I lived in a few places. I lived in Gainesville, Georgia. I lived in Roswell, Georgia. But the majority of my time in Georgia was in a small town called Dalton, Georgia. So, I'll get to my point on, my childhood kind of pushed me or gave me that desire and to become an attorney because, I'm not one to victimize myself or to ever call myself a victim because I don't. But we did have a hard time with local law enforcement, with being Hispanic, growing up in the South. It wasn't that easy. There was racism,
Right.
and it's something I dealt with. And I grew up in a community that was very clear-cut. When I talk about clear-cut, I mean divided in, either you're U.S. American or you're from Mexico. Literally, there was really no in between.
Yeah, whatever. You're Mexican.
Yeah, it's one side of the town is where the Mexicans lived, and the other side was the Americans. And this is an interesting story. So where I grew up, the town I grew up in is called the nickname they gave it was Carpet Capital of the World. So the overwhelming majority of carpet produced all over the world comes from Dalton, Georgia.
Is it still like that today?
It's still like that today, but they changed the nickname. It's still, I guess where the carpet is made, the overwhelming majority of the flooring and carpet is made around the world. But they changed it recently to Soccer Town, USA. And I'll get to that in a minute. That's why I played soccer,
Okay, I got you.
So, who's going to be working these carpet mills? Mexicans. It's true. So my grandfather from Illinois said, you know what, there's this town in Georgia. All these Mexicans are moving there. My grandfather had a Mexican store in Peoria. So then he moved the store to Dalton, Georgia. He opened up it was the first Mexican grocery store in Dalton, Georgia. Oh. And it was there for the community, the Mexican community. Right. And so when I grew up, we dealt with a lot of racism and my friends were from Mexico, and at the time I didn't know it, right? Because you don't talk about your friend's immigration status when you're little. You just
I don't think you care. You're just hanging out.
You just hang out, have fun as kids, right? And as I grew older, I realized that, none of them had lawful status in the country. They all came in illegally,
Really?
right? Yeah, that's the reality.
Yeah, I remember not to cut you off, but there was like these jokes where like if you're hanging out with like your Hispanic friends, la migra, and then everybody starts to run and stuff like that.
That is really the way I grew up. That was the joke.
Yeah,
right?
it's a joke.
And so, to go further, like growing up like that, dealing with the racism, I was American. I spoke English well. And the funny thing is, my Mexican friends, where I grew up, the community I grew up in, they would call me gringo. They'd call me the American. And the American kids would call me a Mexican. So I was like in between always, right?
You're a hybrid.
Yeah. So then, but I always felt the need to stand up for them whenever there was injustice, because I could express myself better than they could, and because I was born here. I always felt the need to be able to be the one to defend my friends.
To be the vessel, bro.
Yeah, man. And and in that kind of like growing up, I was like, I need to be strong mentally, because I grew up in the less affluent area of town, which people would call the ghetto or the projects. I grew up in government housing. So, I felt the need to, my childhood, forced me to be strong mentally, physically, spiritually. And I also needed to be strong with the law, to know the law to protect myself from the injustices.
Interesting.
So I don't victimize myself, but I'm very happy that I grew up that way, because it made me the man I am today. I think I'm very strong on, when it comes to the mental side, the physical side, the spiritual side, and with the law. I think knowing the law to defend yourself is very well-rounded. So my childhood, having a rough childhood, really,
So what happened with the soccer dreams? Where did you end up going and doing stuff?
That's another story, and that's funny you bring that up. So let me start from there. Where I grew up in Georgia, in Dalton, I was part of the first Hispanic soccer league, right? All the Mexican came, and what they do, they brought their soccer leagues, right?
Bring the boys in.
Yeah. So this group of kids, we were a group of small kids playing soccer in the same league. We had like 5 or 6 little teams, and we'd play against each other. But guess what happened when we go through the school system and we're in high school? We're beating everybody. To the point where we win state championships. Now the town is called Soccer Town USA. We're winning state championships like crazy. Whoa. And kids are now getting the opportunity to play at...
What position did you play?
I played in high school outside of mid. Nice. You have to have the lungs to run all day. So I could run all day. I was always one of the best, if not the best runner on the soccer team.
You still have good endurance? Or?
Yes, at my age. Wow. And not doing much. Like it took me a while, and I could run all day, man.
Yeah, I used to play American football and track. I used to be quarterback, and I play basketball majority of the time. I play pickleball, and my endurance and my cardio was just shot, man. So when I was young,
Really?
Yeah.
No, I thank God that I have good lungs. Those are my wings, man. I could run all day. Really? So winning state championships, got me a soccer scholarship at a place called Young Harris College. It was a 2-year school. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Young Harris. It's a beautiful place in North Georgia. Beautiful. It's in the mountains. Literally, I'd walk out of my dorm, and I was surrounded by the mountains. That's awesome. It was beautiful. But So from the soccer scholarship there, it was a 2-year. After that, I was recruited to train with a professional soccer team in Mexico, Rayados de Monterrey, and it was the youth development teams that I went to train with. And so that summer, I was training with them, and then I also had the option to go play at a 4-year school here in Miami. That's how I came to Miami.
That's the connection.
That's my connection to South Florida.
Barry University?
Barry University.
Nice.
And I played soccer.
You had a full ride there too?
Yes, with the I didn't need all soccer scholarship because academically I had a scholarship there, but they put in the rest, and so I didn't end up paying anything really.
But when was the point that you said, I'm going to study to be an attorney?
Well, let me get to that. So let me backtrack then. So the soccer thing didn't work out, and I'll explain why. I thought I'd play professional soccer my whole life, right? In 2008, I don't know if you guys remember, but the economy just went south, man. It was bad. There was no jobs. I remember the MLS, this is the Major League Soccer, was offering soccer contracts for like $16,000. McDonald's worker would make more than that. Wow. I was like, nobody was like, who's going to go play? Who's going to play soccer with that? Like, I can't. And, at the same time, like I said, and we're a little raw and uncut on this set.
Yeah.
I grew up in what people would call the projects, the hood, and with that comes a mentality and just a lot of vices. My dad got caught up into some trouble around that same time, and he went to jail. My dad was in jail, and so now taking away that financial support that I had from my father, the economy's bad. No one's really paying money for some of the on the soccer side. It's like
step up.
Man, and guess what happened around that time? I graduate 2008, December 2008. I graduate from Barry University. The economy is bad. My dad is going to jail. The Social Security Administration offers me a job.
Wow.
So nobody's getting jobs. People I graduated, I think 2 or 3 years later, we're still having trouble getting jobs from 2008. It was that bad. And within a few months, I was already offered a job with the federal government. So it's like,
defense. Wow.
yeah. So it was like the universe kind of like said, hey, I know how much you want to play soccer, but
This is your window.
this is where you got to go in. And I needed to take it. I had no financial support. I needed to make money.
No. I mean, it's a no-brainer too.
Yeah.
And then the immigration came from protecting your boy since you were young, kind of deal, right?
That my father was deported.
Supported too.
My father was deported.
Still not here.
He's still not here. Yeah. No,
Is it for life?
Yeah, for life. That offense is for life.
Okay.
So that being in South Florida, being around, like South Florida is the international hub for almost everything now.
Absolutely.
Right? So Miami is the international hub for everything, meaning as a natural consequence, we have many immigrants coming here.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is the last area of law I wanted to practice was immigration. It wasn't until, I started being called by everyone like, hey, I need help with this. People from back home needed help from where I grew up. Seeing what happened to my father was also a motivation too, right? When he was deported, because he was deported while I was in law school. So he served his years in jail. He was deported while I was in law school. So taking all that into account, it kind of just pushed me into saying, you have to be an immigration attorney. All my work was coming through there. My motivation was through there. My wife is from Venezuela, and so it just
where did you get the huge philanthropy aspect of who you are? Because I'm first, result of it. I mean, you supported all our pig events for the police. He's one of our, if not the biggest sponsor when it comes. We're in our third year. He's been there since the beginning. You were always the first one to say, hey, I can help. Is that just because you're a good dude or just because you came up? Because, I mean, you're a lawyer in immigration, but you also do so much for the community.
Yeah, no, there's
more than any regular real Miamian. You know what I'm saying? To be honest.
Yeah. I mean,
where does that drive come? Because it's not just cutting the check. Like, homie puts in the work. You know what I'm saying?
Involved.
Yeah, no, it's multiple factors. One, I could start. My brother's in law enforcement. Two, being that giving side that I have comes from these Christian morals and values that my family instilled in me from a very young age, right? And also just being educated, understanding that our first responders, like law enforcement, fire department, those are like necessary factors for the fabric of a civilized community. Like without that, we don't live in a civilized community. You need this, so
defund the police.
Yeah, that's where I was going to. So then, that's exactly what I was going to say next. Then you hear in other states, political leaders talking about defunding police. I'm like, what do you want to live in? A state like Cuba or some other
like
or
a
Haiti?
Terminator afterlife.
Haiti?
Yeah, so I have a lot of friends that are in the law enforcement. I play basketball with them, and they are like not feeling the current state of the society and how they treat them.
Correct.
We've had law enforcement on this broadcast. That
We
doesn't
deal on a
mean
daily.
that there's not bad apples, and I think that happens in every industry.
Correct.
But to generalize them and say that they all suck or that they're all terrible is just a crucial mistake for us. They're literally what allows us to live in a civilized community.
Correct.
And what's going to end up happening if that continues, and it happened in New York after COVID, they just started retiring back to back to back. People aren't going to want to be firefighters. People are not going to want to be cops. It's not going to be incentivized to do that.
That's one of the biggest things that why we do our events and why he's such a big supporter of them. Because, I mean, we want to help the police and stuff like that, but I think it starts at the core, helping some of these immigrants that might take a bad turn if they don't get proper help with someone like you. My question is, you do help a lot of immigrants. I've seen your IG is something special. It's captivating, but it's all dangerous too, because homie's got big balls and he calls people out on what they should be doing directly to them.
Yeah.
How do you make money though, Primo? Like if you're helping immigrants, like they don't have, your lawyer fees are what? They're pretty big fees, and
a couple $100.
like how do you also work in that? You got to make a living too, But I mean, because if you're only helping, like how do you kind of balance that out?
No, I have about thousands of clients.
Okay,
So I have a volume law firm. I do very well. I get results. And if you guys want to hear the story about
you must have
how I
an
blew
incredible
up,
team then, right?
yeah, I have a great team, starting with my wife.
Oh, what she's sitting with?
So I met my wife in law school at St. Thomas. We met at St. Thomas Law here in Miami. She's a lawyer in Venezuela, in Caracas. She went to law school in Caracas.
Do not fuck around in the
I feel like your wife is a little bit more spicy than you.
Yeah,
a little bit more calm. Your wife is a little bit more,
Well, like, Rolly, don't mess it up, Rolly.
But if anyone is married to a Venezuelan or Colombian,
I'm married to Colombian. I know exactly.
So then I don't have to.
I call her chiquita pero peligrosa.
Yeah, there you go. It's all needless to say why they're like that, or Cuban.
Yeah, no, hey, my ex-wife is Cuban and we have a great relationship, but I'm not scared of any man, but I'm terrified of my ex-wife.
There you go. So it's needless to say they come. They're that's the way.
Huge factor in,
and either you like it or you don't.
Or you don't.
Yeah, and I love it.
And you don't. Wow.
But so if you want to hear the story on how, everyone has a story on how their business grew, right?
Yeah.
It's not overnight, or for most people, for the majority of people, it's not overnight. It was, the reason I started my law firm because I couldn't find a job at that time. When I graduated law school in December 2014, but I passed the bar, in 2015, it was an employer market, meaning the employers really, there was more than enough employees, lawyers to pick from. But I just really wasn't getting any job offers, so I was kind of forced to start my own law firm. I needed to make money.
Make a living,
yeah, right. So we started off very humble beginnings, and then in 2019, they implemented what's called Migrant Protection Protocols program. The Trump administration did. This is called the MPP, where people who come to the border, instead of just coming in and being released into the country, catch and release, they actually had to wait in Mexico and do their asylum process while waiting in Mexico. So a lot of people called it Wait in Mexico, right? So it was a new program. Not a lot of attorneys wanted to engage. A lot of people needed help. And there was a lot of good people that were coming to request asylum, that were escaping bad situations. And I always tell people, and they say, in a few words, what is it that you do as an immigration attorney? I say, I defend people that are victims of Marxist ideologies, right? In other words, communism. And the majority of my clients are escaping communism in the country. And we know how bad communism is, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have to say that. So I go to the port. I tell my wife, I said, you know what? I'm going to start taking these cases. I go and literally I'm living on the border these months. I come home like 2 or 3 days out of the month to see my wife and my daughter at the time, because my son wasn't born. But I was living on the border. And these cases, the headlines at this time were, asylum is now impossible. Those were the headlines. Like, no one was going to get asylum. They were going to wait, and that everyone was going to get denied. And I'll admit the denial rates were very high, highest they've ever been. Those statistics were the highest that they've ever been ever for asylum seekers. It was
under the Trump administration.
Under the Trump. So out of 100 asylum cases, only 4 would have a favorable result. That's unheard of. Right now, it's 70-30, approximately 65-35, approximately. So at that time, people talk about immigrants and maybe thinking that they're not sophisticated with technology, but they had these vast networks across the border where they would communicate through WhatsApp. Yeah, WhatsApp chats, exactly. And they would communicate on what's happening, who got what judge, who's their attorney,
really?
What were the outcomes.
Not as dumb as they think they are.
No, man. They have a level of sophistication, right, when it comes to technology. And so I'm this young attorney from Miami, and that's how I was known within these chats. Hey, there's this young attorney in Miami, and he's starting to win all these cases. So I had the
fame started.
Yeah, then it started to grow because everyone was losing. I mean, not everyone. There would be some cases winning, but the pandemic hits and it gets canceled. But from, like, I would say November, December 2019, when my trials began for these cases, until March of the following year, 2020, I had 17 cases. I won all 17 cases, or I got favorable results for all 17. So if you look at the statistics, if out of every 100, only 4 would get a favorable result, to get 17 favorable results, you would need to try, like, what, 420 plus cases?
4 or 5 times as much.
Yeah, 400 plus cases, right? 420 plus cases. Well, I got those 17 out of 17. I won 100%.
Tom Cruise of immigration.
So then everybody was talking about me on the border. And then, overnight, I'm with my wife. I'm like, wow, that just, in those few months, my career has changed. Yeah. But I showed a lot of heart during that time, a lot of sacrifice, because living on the border is not easy.
I was going to ask you about that. Like, explain to us, what is it like? I've never been to the border. I would love to go. I think that'd be something interesting to see, Like, how is it exactly? I mean, I'm sure you didn't live, like, in,
Well, I was living in hotels in, like, Laredo, Texas. Like,
that's right on it, right?
Yeah. I mean, you will be in Laredo and you won't even tell the difference between if you're in Mexico or Laredo.
Tijuana, it's Tijuana.
Well, no, it's Nuevo Laredo and Laredo. So there was 4 immigration courts. You had the Harlingen, Brownsville area, and then you had the Laredo, you had the El Paso, and you had San Diego. So there was 4 major courts taking it. And so then they would cross over from the Mexican side over to the U.S. side to have their hearings, and then they were returned back. However, if your case was approved during your trial, and I would go and litigate, in the preliminary hearings and in the trial, and if your case was approved, they would allow you into the country. But it was not good. I mean, I didn't like it, right?
But what is the litigation like? Are you showing proof that they're, for the reason that they're trying to ask for asylum? Like, give me a little bit of insight on that.
Yeah, correct. There's what we have is called the Real ID Act, which basically qualifies what type of evidence we need to present to the court in order to have the case approved. And not every case has evidence. Like, there's some people just don't have the video of when they were beat, right, by the government, right? Yeah. But sometimes they'll have pictures of, of the aftermath, right, whatever happened to them. But, so not everyone has evidence for everything. So if your testimony is evidence, whatever you have is evidence. But if there's some evidence you can bring, but you attempted to get it or it just no longer exists, then they won't use the law against you. However, if there's evidence that you could have acquired but just chose not to, then they can use that against you and deny your claim for asylum.
Yeah. So it's just being thorough in the litigation process and in the case in order to get them approved.
Yeah, and the fun part about litigating in court is you get to be creative with your arguments. I was big on philosophy in undergrad. If anything, I had a philosophy major as an undergrad because I did pre-law. But pre-law is just all philosophy of law. And all my classes were philosophy, and I fell in love with it. And you really get good at arguing and finding fallacies and arguments from opposition, like the trial attorneys for ICE. So then, it's really fun to get in there and litigate and argue against the other side. And then also give, when you have a legal strategy and you present it, there's creative ways you could present it to the court and say, this is why the law protects or supports my client, so it's fun.
Does it ever get overwhelming with so many cases and so many people that are really like on their last straw? And there's a lot of emotion to that as well, right?
A lot of emotion. That's why earlier I said I showed a lot of heart, right? And people realize this attorney cares, and that's what people care about the most. They don't want someone who they feel, because we already have this bad reputation for whatever reason, whether it's true or not, right? That attorneys just want money. Yeah. So, right? I never chased money. If that was the case, I would have done something else. I would have done car crashes, right? You know what I mean?
A lot of those.
Yeah, right. So, but I really was passionate about protecting people, immigrants. I come from an immigrant family. My dad's an immigrant. I come from an immigrant community. Yeah. I was passionate about it, and people saw that. And my passion also led me to win all those cases. Without passion, your results don't come out the same way. So yes, it's very emotional. I remember seeing a father on his last straw, and I remember he came to me and he was like, crying, and he's like, his kids don't understand what's happening. They're little kids, and they're like saying, "Daddy, I want to go home," and he had no way of telling them like there is no home. I get emotional right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you deal with it? You're a pretty tough son of a bitch.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, but,
at
you know,
some point, you gotta, say, God, how much more of this can I take?
No, it's tough, and you see a lot of kids being trafficked. You see a lot of bad things on the border. So, I'm grateful that I got to witness that. It just makes me much more appreciative of everything I have in life, and
is that why you go so hard?
that's why I go hard. Yeah, I go hard.
Yeah.
And apart from that, there's another story where there's this lady, and it's crazy. Like, she's a single mother. We're before a judge who's denies a lot. I saw his statistics. He denies a lot, right? And she comes in with a little girl and a newborn. She gave birth in Mexico.
Jeez.
And she's fleeing a bad situation from Venezuela. The baby is a newborn. So one of the female officers for CBP, or that was contracted to regulate the courts. We could say male and female here, right? There's two genders, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That I know of, at least.
Oh my God, Rolando, please. We were doing so well.
So there's so the female officers are carrying the baby in the back while we're litigating, on through video conference, through a big screen. And I'm in this situation, and this judge is like wanting to deny this case, and I'm like, these people have nowhere to go, and she's a single mother with her daughter, her 3-year-old daughter, and a newborn. I was like, I can't lose this case, man. We argued a closing statement maybe half an hour. We probably took 2 or 3 breaks just for closing statements. And I was telling myself internally, I can't lose this case, man. I can't have these people deported back to Mexico and nowhere to go. So we sat there and I fought. I was like, and in my head, I'm like, I'm going to keep going until until the judge changes his mind. And the judge finally gave in and approved the case.
And what happens then when they're approved?
They were allowed into the country.
All right, so this is a big situation, and I find myself torn between, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. So I feel for the people in other countries, South America, or wherever you're coming from around the world, because they're struggling, and they want to come to the best country in the world, where I believe is the best country in the world, at least. But I also feel for the people who are trying to do things the right way, coming here to study, and they don't have that easy path to citizenship as maybe someone coming across the border. So you telling me these stories shows more the problems that are occurring on our border and why people are coming. Can I get your insight on how you feel personally about what's going on right now at the border compared to people coming, studying, and trying to get a citizenship that way?
Yeah, no, it's horrible. They need to close that border down. And that's exactly why Trump shut the border down. And I can say, back when Donald Trump ran for president the first time, I didn't support him. I didn't support Hillary either, but I didn't support him because I didn't believe him. I didn't know if he was being honest or not. But when that man took office and he did what he did, I switched. I was a registered Democrat. I was a Democrat my whole life. When he showed that he really was for the American people and doing the right thing, I switched and I supported him. And then I believed in his policies. And now, seeing what happened the last 4 years, the disaster that's happened, the invasion we're having at the border, makes me look back and say he knew what he was doing. They did the right thing. They needed to secure that border because they knew what was about to be sent over through our southern border.
So, but to that point, if you know that these situations are happening, why do you think we should close the border? I mean, I know what you're saying, but I guess the better question is, out of 100% out of 100 people that are coming to the border, what percent are people who actually are really, really, really in dire situations, and what percent is just
at this point, I would say less than 50%, in my opinion, my professional opinion,
are really seeking legit asylum.
Correct. I would even think maybe 25-30% are really legitimately seeking asylum, if that.
So if we were to close the border, right, what would happen? What do you think would happen to those cases of situations like that mother and other things like that?
They would stay at the border because they have nowhere else to go, and they would wait for their asylum claims.
Gotcha.
And I think all those frivolous claims would be well, what am I doing here? And head back.
Gotcha.
And that has, and since we're speaking so freely here, I have the open mic. What the Biden administration has done with their open border policies have put my life in danger, has put my family's life in danger, because they've sent all these criminals over from Venezuela. And
that's what I wanted to ask you to talk about, because that's a huge thing. Go ahead and elaborate on that.
Yeah, so for the last few years, I've been the Maduro regime specifically has sent agents to attack my character, to try to to attack me physically, and they've tried all different routes to shut me down and basically kill my image, and essentially even threatened to kill me with their goons, the goons they sent over through the border.
What's the main reason behind that?
Because I would speak out against them. I would talk
directly to them.
Yeah. And I have a right. This is America. We have
But I feel like a lot of people do. Why are you different?
Because I have a bigger platform than others. That was the problem. Rolando is respected by the Venezuelan community. Rolando has a platform. We got to take that platform from him.
Gotcha.
And at first it wasn't a problem, but the bigger I got, the more noise it makes, and they don't like that. You remember, this regime is actually really a cartel.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that? It's the biggest cartel in the world.
Yeah.
Trillions of dollars.
100%.
Cartel del Sol. I don't know if you guys knew this.
No, I don't know that.
Yes. Biggest. And they're the most dangerous.
I know there was I want to ask you something. So when you say close the border, going back to the previous question, when you say close the border, you don't mean like not let anybody in. You mean like have a process in place where they stay over there and the right ones get filtered through.
Yeah, we'll have, I deal with this. If the Trump administration ever wants my 2 cents, I would give it. But yes, there needs to be a strict filter. There's different mechanisms we can use, but there has to be a strict filter at the border.
I would agree with that.
There has to be. So, I've read so many books about immigration law, and the terms that I've come to are this. There has to be a way that we respect the spirit of the law, of our immigration laws. In this case, how do we respect the refugee laws in our country? But at the same time, and on the same platform, respect our safety,
Of course.
here in the U.S. How are we going to maintain our citizens safe?
Are you the only Republican immigration lawyer in the country?
I don't,
Because there's not many of you, right?
I don't know, man. Well, actually, that's a good question. I don't know other. Well, no, I'm not, because I do know a few others, but I would say large part, a lot of immigration attorneys kind of feel the need that you have to be a Democrat,
Right.
or lean to the left, and I want nothing to do with that. I have studied how communists work because I have to defend my clients from these Marxist
From them.
ideologies. So now I know how they operate. I know it so well. It's so crazy. And, it's like
Are we in trouble?
I'm 10 steps ahead of them because I already know how they operate. So then when I started to realize how these communists operate, I started to see how the Democratic Party today has their policies and their laws are no different. They're the exact same. They're the blueprint of these communist policies and laws.
So you think we're in trouble if nothing changes?
Absolutely. That's why I fought so hard to, for the Republican Party. I donate so much time and resources to that party.
I saw you at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, I always go to Mar-a-Lago.
I saw
I
you.
love Mar-a-Lago.
You were with the man over there.
Yeah, I love Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Talking about the whole communism thing. My mother and my father came durante el Mariel,
Interesting.
right?
You're a Marilito.
Yeah, not me personally, but my family was.
Mine came 10, 15 years before.
So, for a very long time, I think it was over 50 years, we had the wet foot, dry foot policy.
Correct.
For the Cubans, right? And I know it had to do with the Bay of Pigs situation. Obama's last day in office, he canceled the wet foot, dry foot policy. I wanted to get your personal opinion on was that a good policy or bad policy, and how? Because I know like other countries didn't feel like that was fair to them, and it wasn't, and it was it was beneficial to the Cubans.
We'll never know because they're not honest. They will never say what their real reasons are. I could give you my opinion. Sure. I think he realizes that Cubans don't vote for the right, the overwhelming majority. Yep. You'll have your few communists.
No, you're right.
Definitely.
You have those losers around here that want communism. It's like, go back to Cuba if you want that so bad, right?
Yeah.
But like, to me, it was a political thing. He knows that they don't vote to the right. He's like, why would I keep giving these people a path to citizenship? No, it gives them wet foot, dry foot. You get residency.
Immediately.
You get citizenship 5 years later. Then they're eligible voters, and they're going to vote against me. He knew what he was doing. That was a political move.
Yeah.
Look what Donald Trump did his last day in office. The last action he took, he extended a protection to the Venezuelan community to not be deported. The DED.
Yep.
So right. So you have the political rhetoric that Trump is a racist, that he hates immigrants, but if you look at their actions, he's actually done everything to help immigrants.
Yep.
When you look at the other side, Obama, Biden, Kamala, they've done everything to hurt them. Right now, they're helping them. Why? What do communists do? They'll give you bread today, but they'll let you starve tomorrow.
For sure.
Right? So they're giving them everything they want now. We want you to come. We want your votes. We want you to vote illegally in this country. But then when we take power again, you will get nothing from us. You will starve to death.
To that point, I'm a big fan of Elon Musk.
Yep.
And I think he's put a spotlight on what's happening with the Democrats. He's saying that if this election, if we don't win, or if the Republicans don't win, that there will never be another Republican nominee or president for the rest of our lifetime, most likely. They have opened the border. They're shipping people and flying people into swing states, and then they're finding a path to citizenship.
Correct.
To me, and he put it perfectly, it's diabolically smart, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get some insight on that from your end.
Yeah, they're doing it now. They just open up a process which was never an option before, to essentially request asylum in a foreign country, not even being at our southern border. And if it's approved at that interview with an asylum officer, this is new since last year. Yes. So it's Colombia, Ecuador, Guatemala, and Costa Rica. And there's certain deadlines that if you were in those countries and from a certain nationality before a certain date, you can request asylum and come in with basically it's a green card. You already come in and you'll be on your path to residency and then citizenship. So that's new, and that's what they're doing.
Well, they have that, and now they're trying to go like no voter ID laws.
Yeah, exactly. No voter. Why would you want to make our voting more unsafe?
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't. And I wouldn't say that we would probably be the only Republicans, because they're very creative and they're not dumb, right? They've been doing this. They've had this blueprint for decades now, right? They operate based on what's called controlled opposition, right? So they'll have Republicans, but they're really not Republicans. They're Democrats. They'll fund them, say you're going to run on the Republican platform, but when it comes time to make these important decisions, you're going to decide with the Democrats, with our side, the communists,
The rhinos.
the rhinos. Yeah,
The rhinos.
There you go, the rhinos.
Yeah.
So that's something they've done in every country, and they do it here too.
Okay, so I have another question for you. I've heard a lot of noise and a lot of chatter about an application that people have that they download. Mm-hmm. I'm not very clear on what it does. I think you can ask for certain things or for certain benefits as an immigrant coming across the border. Do you know anything about that? Could you shed some light? It's like an application that you download now and
yes,
used for immigration.
It's CBP1. All right.
Okay.
So CBP.
Explain that in detail if you can.
Yeah. Okay. So CBP1 is an app they created so that people who come to request asylum at the southern border could do so legally, right? Lawfully. Instead of just crossing illegally, they want to do it lawfully. But behind that is why did they do this? Why? Because everybody started complaining about how high the numbers were of illegal entries. So they said, okay, we're still going to allow entries, but this time they will be lawful. So they created this lawful mechanisms through an app to say, instead of coming in illegally, just sign up on the app and then we'll usher you in, and now it's lawful. So now you won't be on the ICE statistics or the CBP statistics.
You're off the list.
Yeah, as being illegal. So now the numbers come, but the numbers not really lower because they're really not even vetting, because all these many criminals have come in through there. The group, the Tren de Aragua, that has threatened me for years now, threatened to kill me, they're coming in through that. They're not working. They're living off government benefits. Like, it's a disaster. But that's why they did it.
That's incredible.
Having death threats and stuff like that, any normal person says, I'm out. Like, to be honest, if you get a death threat, Eddie, you're a man, but you're going to be like, yo.
I don't know, bro. I saw my boy Trump fight, bro. And I'm there with him.
Yeah.
How do you keep going when your life is even at risk, man? Like, where's that?
Well, I grew up, and my upbringing made me grow up extremely tough. So I am very tough, and I know.
Oh, I know you're one of the toughest guys I know.
And a lot of people may be fooled by my education and me being a lawyer, but I grew up in the ghetto, and we grew up really rough. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if you guys know those Mexican how would I say it? The cholos, right? You with the I grew up,
does Rolly have a chest tattoo?
No, I don't have a tattoo. So, but like I grew up like that. Like, this is no joke.
No,
People kids taking guns to our schools, fighting every day, like shootings, like stabbings. Like my friend I grew up with, a long time ago, killed a kid that grew up with my sister. Like, just shot him in the chest, like right not too far from our house. Like, this is the environment we grew up in. Like, I grew up really tough too. So you're not going to intimidate me just because you come from the projects in another country. I'm from the projects too, so I'm not afraid.
Yeah, I'm about it too. That's good. That's good. That's a good point.
All right. You talked a little bit earlier about being a border angel.
That's what they called me. Yes. So
Yeah. So
you
tell
know,
me a little bit of details. Why did they call you the border angel?
well, like all Hispanic communities, they give nicknames to people, right?
For sure.
So when I started winning all these cases on the border, one of my clients, his name is Rafael Villasmil. Love the guy to death. He's a good friend. I represent his whole family now. But he started saying he's the one who mentioned that the first time to us. Hey, they're calling you El Ángel de la Frontera.
Wow.
Right?
Amazing.
So because I kept winning and because people were not winning like that, like you could win one or two, but everything else was denied. But I won I got 17 favorable cases. That was just unheard of. It was just one after another. Even in my office, they were saying this one he's not going to get approved. Statistically, it just can't happen.
Yeah.
I won the next one, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it just kept going. And it was like 17. I was like, I gave all the glory to God, but it was something special to see. So they said, they started calling me the border angel, and that would also segue my next point. When I was born, I have an interesting story too, and they always said you're going to be an angel. You're going to come and do great things in this world.
Wow.
I was a stillborn, so essentially, a week before I was supposed to be delivered, my mom said she stopped feeling my movement. I was no longer moving in her stomach. She was very young, so she didn't know how to handle the situation. So a week later, she goes in. She was like 17, 18 years old at this point, 18. And they said, your baby hasn't moved in a week. You should have come in immediately. And then so they start doing, all their checks. I guess in 1986, they had so many ways they could check to see if the baby was alive. They checked every way, and they said, no, it's a stillborn. He's dead. There's no heartbeat. There was no heartbeat. That's a for sure thing. They set up later that day to remove me, but before they removed me, they called a local a pastor to come in to give the blessings on the anoint the dead body. So they wait for the pastor to come in. He comes. They get everything ready. They have books on how to remove on the procedures of a stillborn. And my mom's still in disbelief and saying no, he's gonna be okay. She keeps her faith the whole way through. They remove me from the womb, and I start crying the minute they take me out. Yeah. So from having no heartbeat to crying.
Sleeping a little bit.
I went back to get. I always say I went back to get something upstairs.
That's incredible.
But
I never said it's going on.
And the newspaper, they said the miracle baby. So then everyone's always said you're gonna come and do great things. You're an angel of God.
So I was gonna ask you a question for those people that I know you work a lot with the people crossing the border. But maybe somebody who's coming here and studying and maybe trying to get like a merit-based citizenship. Do you help with that? And can you give me a little bit of details on that?
Of course.
Yeah. How long is the process as well?
Well, the case processing times differ from one request from another. Some application process, you could have an expedited way to request it, like paying a little extra money, and it's much faster. But I do student visas. I do EB1s, EB2s. So EB1s are like those who are talented with special talents, extraordinary abilities.
Like what? Like soccer?
Athletes, yeah. So actually, when I first started, the majority of my workload was dealing with businesses and athletes. So, I dealt with a lot of mixed martial artists. That was like the main thing.
Yeah, another get important enough all over the world. Yeah.
UFC fighters.
Coach Shed does a good job with that too. Bringing people over here.
Correct. Well, one of my clients who I'm doing one of those for now is at Goat Shed. Yeah, so that's funny you say
they sleep on the floor, bro. And Asylum does a great job. They have beds and stuff for that.
What is it here?
They come here in Miami. They come straight to train.
Yeah,
and then they try to get
legal.
They try to. They
it
go
depends.
through that process.
Yeah. So it depends what level you make it to. What's the level of recognition before we say, okay, now it makes sense to apply for your residency through your talent. But then there's so many factors you got to take into account. Okay, they got here. Now, did they stay at any point without a status? And if they did, what way can we get them to leave and come back in so that they can acquire that residency? So it's just so many steps you have to look at.
Yeah, I want you to. This is something that's actually going to clear some stuff up for me. We're a marketing agency too, and I get a lot of people that call me and they want to buy a business or do something and they want to get the EB5 visa
or an E2. It depends. It depends what they endeavor, because not everyone endeavors to be a resident. Some people are like, I want to, the market there is good. I want to start a business and be able to go in and work and then be able to.
But people who want to try to get citizenship here through the path of a business.
EB5.
That's the EB5 visa.
Right.
Can you explain to me in a little bit more detail than normal what is an EB-5 visa? How does it work?
So yeah, there's certain target areas that where it doesn't have to necessarily be $1 million investments. Recently, they raised that amount that you have to invest. It's over $1 million now, but there's certain target areas. So like if it's a area that needs development, they will let the government will let you go in and invest like a little over 800,000, so not quite $1 million for that area, and you could still have a pathway to residency. But it's still, like I said, every case is different because is the person outside the country? Are they inside the country? The resources, making sure that the resources are legitimate. And it's not always like, hey, I made this investment, the business is up and running, give me my residence.
That's what it makes it feel like sometimes. Like they're coming in here, they're looking for a business, they buy a business, and they just think the process is simple.
No, it's actually not that way. It actually could take time before you even become a resident. Some people, even after that large investment, will not get the residency. But there's so many factors that you could talk about, like why they wouldn't acquire it. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
And if the business fails?
Yes, I don't think I know people who have done it, and even after they get their stuff, they let the business fail because they were coming out of pocket just to operate it, and they're like, whatever, let it close.
Okay. Well, see, everyone has their own way of approaching things, but yeah.
Coming, we're a couple days away from probably the biggest election we've ever had on Earth. I know this is probably going to air after the election. What are your hopes for the election, the whole process of immigration, procedures, everything? Like, because you've been on the front line, so you know more than anybody. Like, what are you hopeful for? Obviously, we know where you stand on the politics, but for like a better world or a better.
Yeah, no.
Like, what are we thinking here? What's the game plan?
Well, Trump has to win, in my opinion.
Okay.
He has to win in order for our country to remain a civilized country. That's the reality. I've seen the Democratic Party change to, these Marxist policies and ideologies, and I know what comes with that. You know what comes with it. You guys are from Cuban descent, and we know how destructive that is. Not only like destruction of like
everything, bro, everything.
Your soul too.
Everything.
They destroy your soul, everything. So we can't have that. I'm hoping that Trump wins. I'm hoping we do mass deportations. And again, J.D. Vance said it. Trump said it. They're focusing on criminals. We have a lot of terrorists and criminals that come to that border, and we know this.
Yeah,
this is not something.
It's not ripping families out too, but
no. If the FBI says it, it's because it's just it's true, and they wouldn't be quick to say something like that, but it's true. DHS has said it. Everyone has been real about the situation. We have so many terrorists and criminals that have crossed that border, and I know it because they've threatened to kill me.
I know,
right?
Directly,
so, directly. Me and my family, And just quickly, and I'll digress. Here on Ponce de Leon, guy cuts off my wife from this group, cuts her off like cartel style, gets off the car, and starts threatening to kill her and the kids in the car. Right? So this is what I've had to deal with.
Yeah, this ain't in Homestead. This is in Ponce de Leon, right here, a block from our office.
Yeah, so so now I digress. But that's this administration has put me and my family at risk. And how many people have died or have been harmed by these criminals that have come in from other countries? So many, it's countless at this point. Yeah. And people could say, "Oh, it's happened for decades. It's been like that." Yeah. So and I was like, "Yeah, but not with this frequency, not at this rate, right?" We're not perfect. If one slips through and commits a crime, okay.
There's people taking over apartment complexes.
I know
this never happens.
And then what gets me my blood boiling is that then the mainstream media, who is controlled by communists, will then try to go and say, yeah, but it's only 5 apartment. I'm like, yeah, but
what you're saying.
Yeah, yesterday it was 0. Yeah. Today it's 5. Tomorrow it's 10. And in a year they take over the country. Yeah. So it's a progression.
I was going to ask you. I know. I mean, this is kind of like an open secret. I don't know how secret it is, but I know a lot of people get married in order to get their documentation. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you get a lot of those cases out there, or how does that work out? Well, and have you ever had a situation where someone does that and like it doesn't work out for them, or they kind of get caught?
Well, let me start with this, right? When you get married, it can't be only for the benefit. If you do that, if you're saying, I'm just going to get married with this person to get a path to residency, then that's called fraud. Yeah. And the consequences of fraud are very serious. They'll deport you for life, and you're not eligible for any other benefit in the country ever. Maybe a convention against torture could potentially work, but again, you're not eligible for anything. So I never, obviously, if I'm ever in that situation where someone says that, I said, I think you misspoke, or I think you're confused. And I explain to them,
I think you're fucking up.
I tell them, like, that's not what you want to do. And
That's not the reason.
yeah, because, I have to also educate people.
Of La Frontera.
No, I have to do I would never commit fraud on my country. And I could say that.
For sure you can.
All right, well, I'll tell you this. I know of places that you go to, and they open up a binder. They say, who do you want to get married to? Like that.
Yeah, no. And they catch these
You pay
people.
$20,000, and then, most of the time, it doesn't end well. Because the guy tries to come on to the girl, it gets more aggressive, he wants something more, and then...
or they extort them for more money.
Yeah.
So it never ends well. So
What are your experiences?
So I've seen it in the past. It happens frequently, but they get caught. Most of them get caught, and sure, some people might get away with it. But it's like, if you get caught, you're gonna have harsh consequences. Don't do it, right? But no, I never engage in that. Whenever I do it, it's because it's they're married for love, and that's it.
So it's like an advice you wouldn't get that type of advice, obviously.
No, of course
Yeah,
not.
of course
Like
not.
That's
Yeah,
illegal. That's fraud, man.
Reported.
You'll lose your license. Like, if an attorney engages in that, they're putting their license at risk for what?
No, I see it all the time. I mean, your friends and stuff like that are God, I'm looking for someone to get married to,
Yeah, but and I was going to make that point. A lot of times people just don't, you could call it ignorance, that like, hey, you're breaking the law. Don't do that. And I've talked to people and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. That's stupid. I shouldn't have thought that, right?
Yeah.
I shouldn't even gone down that path.
But you got to be the clarity in the voice because
That's
you
what
are the defender of law.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I wanted to. A while back, we have very good friends and clients that are Mexican, including the plaza across the street, Mais and Agave, good people that I know.
Rich Mexican.
I love the Mexican people, brother. I love Mexico. I've been there plenty of times, and I'm very good friends with a lot of them, and people who are prominent back in Mexico. One of the times we had Jose here from the plaza with Manny, he talked about Little Mexico and Homestead.
Well, we have a Little Mexico next to my community in where I grew up in Dalton, Georgia. They call it Mexico Chiquito. So we have ours too. But I was thinking they gave it that because it's a trailer park community. And but I'm saying, like, anything over this side of the bridge is all Mexican. So really, this whole little section is Mexico Chiquito. Yeah.
But have you been to Little Mexico and Homestead? Or?
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, and I go to eat there because if you want to eat good Mexican food, you got.
That's what I was gonna say. So how good is the food there?
You're a gringo.
Compare how good is, because this was like a hot topic when we talked about Little Mexico and Homestead.
I know what you're leading up to.
Compare the food that you had there, Little Mexico. Like, was it actual authentic Mexican food?
It was more as authentic, more authentic than what you'll get outside of that.
And they also have Mexican supermarkets.
Correct. So when my mother comes, she'll go down to she'll take the drive down to Homestead, get Mexican produce, and then come back and cook at that.
Yeah.
Throw it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge, man. I haven't been there, but they said it was really nice.
No, it's good. Yeah. So if you want that Mexican experience in South Florida, you have to go to Homestead. Like, it's not going to happen elsewhere.
Now go for it. The last question.
The last
Go
question
for it. Feed it
is,
to 'em.
and out of all the spots that you like, Mexican or not, here in Miami, we need your top 3 Rolando spots where you enjoy to eat with your wife, and it's like your top 3 favorite spots.
When it comes to gastronomy, my life is not as enticing as yours.
No, I know, but I know you like to eat well too. You have to start with number 3 all the way to number 1.
So number 3 to number 1.
Rolly's number 3.
So there's this place called Il Domo de Sapori here in Ponce de Leon.
That's one of Manny's. Manny's actually an investor of Idomo.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Manny's
Man, he didn't know that. Let's be clear.
No, yeah.
Okay, so I would
I've
say
heard
that's
good things. I
number
have
three.
not been yet.
Manny was there yesterday with Marco Rubio. He had lunch with him.
At Il Domo, yeah. So I would say that's number 3 for me.
Number 2.
Number 2. This is a tough one because I have a few. So there's this place also because remember I said when we started here, my whole life revolves around Coral Gables.
Yeah.
Everything I do is here.
for
So
sure.
the restaurants are going to
Same
be
thing here.
Of course, where you live
Coral.
by, absolutely.
the first 2, and then it's going to be what's it called, Levant. I would say number 2.
Levant. Wow,
Levant.
dude.
I love Levant.
Levant. I know them very
Oh,
well. I know the family.
Levant. Yeah, that's
Right here in the park. But they changed owners recently. The Crudos. They're saying Crudos bottom
No,
back or
it's the
something.
same one. It's just that because of the way, from what I understand, the way it was already that the company was bought and they just changed the name. They had to keep the
in the
the
window.
corporate name, and I think they're doing business as Levant.
Got you.
Something around.
Yeah, I know the family very well. They used to have a restaurant
invited me
in
to one of those spots.
Española Way
You know,
they sold it and then they opened there.
you're right. They weren't Espanol.
I know them very well.
You know, I like it because I like that type of food. So most people, I mean, it just depends what your taste buds
I do
are
too.
attracted
No, it's
to.
good food. It's good food.
No, and they're very serious about their food.
They are.
You could
They
taste
are.
it. It's consistent.
And the cocktails are great.
Yeah, the cocktails, the mocktails, because I don't drink. I
don't drink?
No.
All right, so number one,
Number one.
I like Lamar.
Lamar.
Lamar. Probably be my top choice.
Lamar,
Diego's
that's
Diego's
yeah.
place
Yeah.
at Mandan Oriental, Peruvian.
Yes.
Diego Oca is the executive there.
There you go. And so I would just say those are chosen because, you know, that my life is here. But I'm sure there's other great restaurants in Miami, right? But that's just what I've experienced.
Top three.
And you know, those are what my taste buds are attracted to.
All right. Final question. For anybody who is in law school right now, what type of advice would you give them for being, if they want to seek to be an immigration attorney?
Or an illegal immigrant in the second part of that question.
Or an illegal immigrant?
Your first his question, and
mine. Some advice. Well, I'm going to give advice to attorneys in general, young attorneys that are coming out, whether they go into immigration or not, right? I always tell this. I've had a few attorneys work under me, associates, and I've told them this. I said, you know, don't go after the money. I go, don't make your objective money in this profession. Make your objective being the best attorney you can be in your area, and the money will follow. So don't put one over the other.
Makes sense.
Right? And that it's like that. If you chase the money, I think you will never achieve the level of professionalism that you need to achieve as an attorney if you're just chasing money. But if you chase that level first, the money will follow as a natural consequence. And number two, what was your question?
If you're an illegal immigrant currently in this country or thinking of coming into this country, what's the correct process?
Get an attorney. It's very simple. Get an attorney. A lot of people like to go.
If you can't afford an attorney?
Well, then do it yourself or look for legal aid. There's all, you know, or look for a nonprofit that offers those services. The last thing you want to do is go with people that are non-attorneys.
Of course.
Because that's where I always see the majority of the issues happen. If not all of them, always there's going to be issues. It could go well at first. Maybe they did one thing, they filed something or another thing correctly. But then if you trust them, through the whole process, you're going to have major issues, and you're going to wish you never did it, and then you're going to have to pay double the money now for an attorney to fix the problem.
So go to the attorney first.
Go to an attorney first. If not, go to a nonprofits that offer that help. Worst case scenario, do it yourself.
Do you ever take like pro bono cases?
I've done pro bono, and I'm doing a case right now pro bono for a guy stranded in the American Samoa. That's an interesting case. We could talk about that.
Talk about that.
I do pro bono too.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's good to give back. It's fulfilling when I can. I'm very, you know, starting my practice, I did a lot of free work, a lot of pro bono work. At this point, because of my operation.
Operational costs.
Yeah, I have to. It's hard to do pro bono, but I still try to do it here and there because I have to give back to the community. I feel that need to give back.
Yeah. Brother, are you going to be at the pig roast?
Of course.
Yeah, I want to thank you personally, bro. I think you're an amazing person.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for always supporting our events and stuff that we do for the community and everything that you do for people that can't fight for themselves. It's an honor for you to be here and to call you my
Thank you, brother. All right, I appreciate it.
Rolando Vazquez, el ángel de la frontera.